Okay, good morning. So today we'll be starting with the first topic, that is the introduction to Western political thought. So when you go through the introduction of Western political thought, we need to understand first few key terms. So if we are able to understand these key terms, then you'll be able to understand the political thought, political ideas of scholars. So what are the key terms we have to be knowing here? So since the subject is about political thought or political idea, the word involves is what? Politics. First we need to understand what is politics, what is the meaning of the term politics, where it has been derived from. Then you need to understand what is a political thought. Then you need to be able to differentiate what do you mean by a political theory. So when you take political theory, there are two types of theory. One we say scientific theories, that is where we have political science. Then you have theories which are philosophical in nature. So here you need to understand the difference between political science and political philosophy. So we have to start with this before even going into Plato, etc. Because if you understand what is a political thought, then you can connect to this Western political thought. Plain and simple. If you take Indian political thought, just attach the word Indian to the meaning of political thought. So here we are going to start with Western political thought. So we are going into understanding what is politics, then what is political thought, what is political theory, what are the different types of theories. And then here we can start with, when we say Western political thought, it is popularly said that Western political thought largely banks on history of the past. But this history does not have an, closing chapter. Means it is continuously evolving. Evolving from whom? From the time of Plato to the present. It does not have a concluding chapter. So even though we say that, writings of Plato, what is there? We call it classics. Classics is writings of Plato, Aristotle, etc. So we say that many of his ideas, what he has discussed, it not only we cannot say it is relevant, it makes you think about the problems in and around you. Okay, what he has written way back then. And that is why we say that whole Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. So whatever they have written in that regard, based on their writings, the other scholars have developed. But before going into that, we'll start with this. So what is the meaning of politics? Or to be can be also called as politic. So what is politics or politic? What do we mean by that? So if you take Aristotle, he's written a book called as, the name of the book is only Politics. Okay. So if you go back to Greek time, there is a Greek word called as polis. What does polis mean? City, state. So why we are telling city, state? At that point of time, there is no concept of nation. So I think in basics of polity, you have read what is a nation. Then you have read what is a state. Today we have the mechanism called as nation state. So what is a nation? Nation is nothing, it does not have any kind of physical existence. A nation is more of an emotional term. Okay, it can be anything, it can be on grounds of religion, language, ethnicity, people having a common emotion, they are connecting to that idea, we call it as a nation. So why we can say like this, every nation need not be a state. So for example, Khalistan might be claimed to be a nation, but Khalistan is not a state. For them to become a state, or when we say nation state, it needs to have 4 elements. What are the 4 elements? Sovereignty, population, government and territory, right? So now we say Khalistan, they claim to be a nation. On what grounds? On a common, let us take religious grounds. So the main problem is that they claim that there is a particular territory that belongs to them. There is also a population that has been residing there. You can say they can have their own government in Canada. They can tell how now Dalai Lama is running the government in exile. They can also run a government in Canada. But the problem with that government is that that government does not have sovereignty. So the idea of nation is mainly evolved, in 16th century afterwards. Till 16th century, there is no idea of nation. Okay, and if you see the idea of nation, initially developed in Europe or Western countries. The idea of nation to develop here in Asia, etc., was pretty late. So if you take India, we can say India is popularly called as nation in the making, even now. So we don't call India as a nation state, we call India as a state nation. India is one exemption to it. So back in those times, in Greece time, there was nothing called as nation. The concept was city state. So every city itself was a separate kingdom or etc., and they governed themselves. It was like a separate country. So if you take Athens, which was there, today Athens is part of the nation state of Greece. But back then Athens, Sparta, etc., they were all independent city states. So that is why when we go back to Greek time, they use the word polis. Polis indicates what? City state. Even today we can have an example of city state, Singapore. It's a city, it's a country, it's a state. So if you take the study of polis, or what we say, polis refers to citizen, that is where the word politics emerges from. So you can say the set of ideas that revolves around studying of the city state, that we call it as politics. So in general, politics refers to study of the elements or the ideas surrounding the state. It can involve functioning of the state. And when we say politics or state, one thing is central, politics cannot be separated from one concept. What is that? Power. So basically it is the art of management of how to attain power, how to retain power, and how to continue in power. So that is the meaning of the word politics. Now moving on from politics to what is a political thought. So generally what do you mean by a thought? Thinking, an idea. Idea of whom? Maybe I have an idea of an individual, etc. So when you say idea of an individual, we usually call it as a political idea, or we can call it as a political thinker. Why we call him as a political thinker? Somebody who has thought about political ideas. But when you say political thought, it is ideas emerged from set of thinkers belonging to a particular age and belonging to a particular region. We call it as a political thought. So when you say Western political thought, we include the ideas about politics which has emerged from set of scholars who belong to the West in certain particular time period. So we can divide the Western political thought into the classics, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Then we can bring medieval times. So in medieval you have a lot of people like, you have, who is that guy? Forgot his name. Because Machiavelli is taken more towards the transition period between medieval period to modern period. Okay, but during medieval period mainly you had Filmer, etc. They largely promoted that the church controlled all the power. Okay, it is during after Reformation, Renaissance movement across Europe, they started challenging the church and they started questioning. That is when Machiavelli emerges during this period, the transition period. Then you have the modern thinkers, Locke, J.S. Mill, Marx, etc. So that is how we can divide into time period. But in general, when we take the whole Western political thought, we are referring to the ideas that has emerged from these people in particular part, what you can say, time history, and in certain context, we can call it as what? Political thought. Similarly, we take Indian political thought. Largely, we can divide Indian political thought into ancient Indian political thought. Largely, it is the Hindu political thought. Writings of Manu, writings of Kautilya, Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, and then you have the political thought during medieval period, that is during the Mughal period, the political ideas which emerged. Then you have the modern Indian political thought. You have Gandhi, Ambedkar, M.N. Roy, Aurobindo Ghosh, etc. But we are telling here Indian political thought. Why? Because these political ideas emerged in the context of what? India at certain time period. So when you say political thought, it is nothing but set of political ideas emerged from certain political thinkers at a particular time period in history. We can refer it to as political thought. So you can say political thought as what? The thinking of an age and understanding of ideas in a particular context. So now, if this is political thought, what do you mean by Western political thought? Connect. Thinking of the age and certain ideas, understanding of certain ideas that emerged in the West. That is called as Western political thought. Now, thinking of an age means what? In certain time period, they were scholars. So if you take the Greek political thought, when we say Greek political thought, we are not only speaking about one person. We are speaking about Socrates, we are speaking about Plato, we are speaking about Aristotle. And why we call them Greek political thought? All of them belong to what? Greece or Athens. So obviously, when you say political thought, why do you think? What makes you think? Situations, conditions, or say you are going through certain difficulties during that time period, or you are facing certain problems during this time period. So that is when you think to solve the problem. That is when you come out with ideas. Get a point? So nobody will think in vacuum. Nobody is a thinker by vacuum. So if you take, in general, if you take not only political thought, even if you take in literature, when authors will write literature, take Kannada literature itself. In Kannada literature, you have something called as Dalita Bandaya. So they also project certain ideas between what? Their own experience or the problems faced by, what you can say, the social issues during that time period, they reflect that. Plain simple, right? Everything you reflect, what are the major problems? See, in movies also, if you see the themes of the movies in that regard, they largely reflect the problems of the society of that period. So if you take in 1980s or 1990s, largely the Bollywood movies in that regard, they mainly themed around what? Corruption, this angry young man, Amitabh Bachchan's movies in that regard, who is against the state. Today, if you see movies, themes are different. Today, we are dealing with LGBTQ, etc. These are the problems of present times. Similarly, in political thought, every political thinker, here we are referring political thinker because here it does not include thinking about anything. Go back to politics. What is politics? Set of ideas that revolve around the state, functioning of the state, capturing power, losing power, or what the problems the state face. So these thinkers would have thought about the problems of those times. You get in mind? Maybe their ideas are also relevant today, but some ideas might be not relevant today. As an example, to give you an example, this Plato, during his time, he spoke about there should be state controlled education. Everybody should, there'll be no family, no children should have private education. That was possible that time. Why? Because city state, population is small. But today you cannot implement the same idea because the context is different, the region is different, the population is different, etc. So when you say political ideas, some ideas might be relevant even today, but some ideas was only relevant to that point of time. So here when we study that political thought or political idea, we are going to investigate and see that why this fellow gave that idea at that point of time. What is the reasons for him giving that idea? So to understand the reason for India, you have to know the conditions during his times. So this is where you see in a political thought, you cannot ignore history. History is part and parcel of political thought. Without understanding history, we say no political, there is a person called as Lusky, a scholar. He says every political thinker is a child of his times. Every political thinker is what? Child of his time. So what do you mean by that? Every political thinker is a child of his times. Basically, the society which they are born into, the conditions which they are born into will shape their thinking. That is in general, right? That is true to not only a thinker, to every person. Your ability to think, your direct, what we say, political attitude. So let us think about political attitude. If you are born into a certain community, your socio-economic conditions are different, your thinking will be different. You are born into some other community in some other socio-economic conditions, your thinking might be different. So similarly, every political thinker also will produce his ideas based on his time period, his socio-economic conditions, what he was born into, etc. So if you take, when we read Plato, Plato gives this idea called as philosopher king. And to summarize in simple sense, he says one who has to rule should not have a family, should be highly educated, highly knowledgeable. He should not have a family, he should not be married, he should not have his own children in that regard. And he says that he should be highly educated, knowledge, because to rule you need knowledge, reason. Family, why he is separating? Because family is one of the root causes of corruption. Third thing he will tell, you should not own any private property. Again, that is the idea what he gives. Interestingly, if you see, Plato was unmarried, Plato was a philosopher, highly knowledgeable. So many say it was Plato's attempt to become the king or project the idea. Whether he did it really or not, secondary. But when we see that why he gave that idea, because the problems what was facing Athens at that point of time, because there was a lot of corruption in Athens, the rulers didn't have right knowledge to rule. So every person, when he brings an idea, you also have to take into his account to what? History, the history of that time period. You cannot, that's why we say, when you want to judge something, you have to also look into history of that time period. So for example, when you take Gandhi, today it is very easy to criticize Gandhi. Go back in history and come today and tell, oh, Gandhi didn't do that. It's easy to criticize. But you are criticizing Gandhi in a different age. What he did was in a different age. So that is why we say, when you want to judge a person, you have to go back to that time period and judge. Because see, if you take Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai as an example, question is that if you tell in today's time, okay, is she a freedom fighter? Did she fight for India as a nation? The answer is no. Because at that point of time, there was no idea of nation only. She didn't fight for the nation, she fought for saving her own kingdom. But you see, then if you look today and tell, then she didn't fight for the nation, she only fought for her own benefits. We can't consider her as a freedom fighter. No, you have to take in that day's context, the idea of nation was not there, but she also contributed to fighting the East Indian Company in her own way. So that is why history is very important. History and politics is married. Every time we cannot look into history to just politics, but we have to know a bit of history to understand the present day politics. We say past history is present politics. So that is why we say, when we go back to a certain time period, we cannot judge them based on that time period, because today and those times are different. A lot of things change. As things change, ideas also bound to change. So again, that is why we say, when we want to understand a political thought, we have to go to that time period. That is why thought of that particular age. That is why we say you cannot segregate history from polity. And many political thinkers whom you read, Karl Marx, Plato, John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, most of them writings when you see, they've made large use of history to produce their ideas. Okay, because now you won't understand, because still we have to do the thinkers. So Karl Marx used historical materialism. Machiavelli, his ideas were largely a product of history of his times. Plato, when he spoke about the idea of justice, he spoke about during his time period, what were the different ideas of justice were there. Then he arrived at his theory of justice. Understand? That's why we say, when we are speaking about political thought, you cannot remove history out of it. History always plays a key role. Understood? So your understanding of a political thought means what? Thinking of an age, understanding of certain ideas, largely not any idea, it is largely political ideas of a particular context. Why we are using the word context here? You need to study that idea in that particular context. If you remove that idea out of that context, that idea might seem irrelevant, that idea seems illogical. So always the context is important. And when we say political thought, it's not just, when we say what, then you can say what is the difference between a political idea and a political thought. Political idea is a political idea of one person, of one thinker of that time period. Political thought is a thinking of an age. Means the major ideas which emerged during that period. So when we say Greek political thought, okay, Greek and Western is one and the same. Greece does come in West. But we say initially when the Western political thought, if you go to the embryo from where the Western political thought emerged, the roots from where the Western political thought emerged, we say it is the Greeks. Okay, Greeks have a lot of contribution to what? Development of political ideas. So that is why we can also call Greece as what? The cradle of political civilization. So this is where the political ideas developed. From like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, then we can say the thread has continued. How? Now if you take the whole Western political thought, we say it is either Platonic or it is anti-Platonic, but there is nothing called as non-Platonic. Either you agree with Plato, either you criticize Plato, but you cannot remove Plato out of the equation. Plato is like Narendra Modi. Either you hate Modi, you like Modi, but you cannot ignore Modi from Indian politics. So the whole Western political thought, that is why they call it as what? Footnotes of what Plato and Aristotle have written. So that is why we say, when we say Greek political thought, it's the, go back to the definition again, Greek political, thinking of an age, understanding of certain political ideas under certain context. When we say political ideas, yeah, ideas of whom? Individual thinkers, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. Socrates largely has not written about politics, he is largely written about philosophy, he is considered as the father of philosophy. It is Plato who is considered as father of political philosophy. Aristotle is considered as the father of political science. Understood? What do you mean by politics, political thought? So why I am telling is that whenever you understand the basics well, connecting the dots is pretty easy. Plain and simple, in option and all it is easy to score. Why many people don't score well in exam is plain and simple, they go for more of by heart. When you go for by heart, what will happen? Unless they ask the question the way you have read, you won't be able to think and write the answer. So here your understanding should not be that you are by hearting, you understand the concepts, let them give any question, just connect to the concepts what you know, write in your own words, still they will give you marks. But if you don't understand and read, what will happen? Then you won't have clarity. When you don't have clarity in exams, when they give, now let us they give in exam a question saying that history cannot be segregated from political thought, comment. They will give a question, like this only question will come, history cannot be segregated from political thought, comment. What will happen now? If you have not understood properly the meaning of political thought, what is the role of history, you won't be able to write an answer. But let us think you have understood, Now when you read thinkers also, you will come across a lot of examples. When you write an answer, you will tell, first you will introduce in your answer what is a political thought, then you will tell why history is key to understanding a political thought, and you will give examples of which scholars they have made use of history to explain their political ideas. And you can write in our conclusion saying that, as Freeman says, that the present politics is past history, or past history is present politics. So politics and history are inseparable. Understood. Now coming to the next term, what was the next term which was there? Political theory. Now what is a political theory? You understood what is political thought, but what is a political theory? First of all, what is a theory? See, everything you can just add politics. What is the word politics? Ideas revolving around state. Okay. Now what is a political theory? First of all, what is a theory? Explanation of what? Right, in every subject you have a theory, right? In physics you have theories, in chemistry you have theories, in what you can say, history you have theories. In politics also you have theories. What is a theory? It's an explanation of a particular idea of a person. Cause and effect. He is going to explain that why this is happening. Plain and simple, that is a theory. So when you develop theories in that regard, you can develop two types of theories, largely in political theory. One is philosophical theories. The other is scientific theories. So what is the difference between a philosophical theory and a scientific theory? This is factual and this is, so basically you can use a technical word. You can say scientific theories are empirical in nature. Philosophical theories are normative in nature. So what is the meaning of empirical and normative? Empirical is something which can be verified, where evidence can be provided. So to give an example, what do we mean by an empirical theory? So now if I want to say that in India, caste does play a very key role in electoral outcomes, I can scientifically prove it. How? Collect data. Data collection, use a methodology where you say that in how many you select certain sample saying that these are the constituencies, okay. Then you will go and say what is the caste of the candidate, what is the caste composition of the majority community here, and you correlate. So you can show that, okay, in whichever constituencies, whichever caste is high, the caste person belonging to that particular caste has won the election. So what does my theory explain? Caste plays a very key role in Indian politics. I can explain it scientifically. That's an example of what? Scientific theory, empirical theory, where you can provide evidence and you can explain what it is, why it is happening this way. You can explain it. What is a philosophical theory? What is normative? So normative largely deals, if you take empirical, largely deals with the question of true or false. This largely deals with the question of good or bad, and this cannot be scientifically verified. So Plato, when he said philosopher king, one who has extreme knowledge, etc., he gives a very philosophical approach to it. What is that philosophical approach? He gives something called as theory of souls. He say every individual has soul. the whole universe, everywhere, every individual, it is comprised of soul. And he says that every soul has three elements. Every soul has three parts to it, or three elements: appetite, reason, courage. But it is not equally distributed. In some souls, reason is very high. In some souls, appetite is very high. In some souls, courage is very high. And he says that by this we need to identify and segregate these souls, saying that only those souls which have reason very high, because those who have reason very high, they are naturally endowed to understand the, what you can say, the ability to rule, ability to be unbiased, etc. And that is why he says they have to become rulers. And in those souls where courage is very high, they have to become soldiers. And in those souls where appetite is high, they have to become common men. The question is that, can you verify this and tell where is this soul, where are those three elements, how do you prove that there is a soul, existence of a soul? This is something which cannot be verified. It cannot be verified. You cannot tell, can you show that there is a soul? Can you give evidence for it? Now here, caste plays a key role. For this I can give you evidence. For this, can you explain this mechanism through what empirical evidence? No. That is why we call this as what? Normative approach. This we call as empirical approach. So political science largely is based on empirical approach. Political philosophy, what is based on? Normative approach. Political science largely deals with the question, what it is. Means it will investigate and, well, what it is, why this is happening. Here largely the question, it's not explanatory, it is not discriminatory, it is prescription. What ought to be. So Plato said how our society should be organized. You are going to mind, in scientific methods you don't prescribe, you don't tell this is how it should be, you are just explaining how it is. If you are asking, now there is a question saying that why in India people from particular caste they win the election, you can explain through scientific. Here this is prescriptive, you are going to prescribe saying that no, caste should not play a key role in politics, caste, religion involving politics is bad to politics. This is more of prescription. So the role of political philosophy is largely what? Prescription. The role of political science is largely what? Explanation. So when we say political theory, it can be mixture of both political philosophy as well as political science. So when the subject started to emerge, originally it was political philosophy dominated. Why? Because people like Socrates, Plato, etc., they largely use philosophical approaches to explain their theories. So when you read Plato, right, you cannot verify Plato's explanation anything too scientifically. He is speaking about metaphysical things. What is metaphysical things? This outside this world, what is there? So he says that what is justice? He says that God has given the idea of justice in every human soul. And he says that if the soul is more well developed, like reason is there, you will be able to understand justice. It was Aristotle who actually started the tradition of bringing empirical methods into study. Because when Aristotle wrote his book Politics in that regard, he brought comparison of 158 constitutions at his times. When we say 158 constitution, it's not like the present day constitution what is written, there were different types of governments which were there. He compared 158 constitutions because that time, during Aristotle time, the word government, the word constitution, the word state, everything was one and the same. Now as we have evolved, the constitution is separate, state is separate, government is separate, but during his time, the constitution, government, state, everything meant one. So he studied 158 constitutions, he saw what are the effects and counter effects, then he produced his own concept called as, he created a system called as polity. He told polity is the best type of political system. So how did he bring that? Through observation, through comparison. So these are all what kind of methods? Empirical methods. On other hand, if you look at Plato, what was his methodology, what he used? Largely philosophical things. In philosophy, when we say even you have a philosophy in life, okay, you say my philosophy is in life that I won't touch alcohol. You can have Gandhian philosophy. Now, if you are going to say that it is right or it is wrong, it can't be dealt with. The question can't be dealt with 100% because you cannot tell drinking too much might be bad for health. You cannot tell drinking only is bad for health. That is your philosophy. That is the way of life you are looking at. So that can't be verified. It only comes in the category of what? Good or bad. You can prescribe. Like Gandhi's was prescription, right? He's saying that don't drink. Causes harmful. So Plato was also like that. He prescribed, saying that okay, how to tackle corruption, what we can do, we can bring philosopher king. Why to bring philosopher king? He gave a philosophical approach, saying that what everybody has a soul. In every soul there are three elements. Only those soul where reason is very strong. Such an individual can only become the king. So can you verify that? Not possible. That is why we bring him under what? Philosophical approach. We bring Aristotle more under what? Scientific approach. So when we say political theory, there can be two types of theory: philosophical theories, scientific theories. So difference is what? Philosophical theories follow normative approach. Scientific theories follow what? The empirical approach. This deals with the question of what? Good or bad. This deals with the question of what? True or false. This deals with what? Questions like what it is. This deals with questions like what? What ought to be. This is prescriptive in nature. This is descriptive in nature. And later you will understand when we read political approaches, there was a debate saying that is philosophy great or science great? Today that debate has been settled, that both philosophy and science are part of political theory. You need both. You need description, you also need prescription, you cannot ignore both. But that we'll study later, that how the subject evolved, because there is something called as behavioral revolution. In 1960s, they said we have to remove these philosophical elements from study of politics, make this subject completely scientific, like how natural science is there. And then there was one person who told, if you try to do like that, the subject only will lose relevance. Because end of the day, what is the purpose of politics? You can say power, state, etc. End of the day, the function of the state is what? To ensure the individuals have a good life. So when you say you want to have a good life, you have to define what is good, na? So they tell you cannot deviate away from prescription, only limit yourself to explanation and description. And that is why Lasky said what? If the subject becomes completely like mathematics or physics or chemistry, he says that the subject will lose the ability to differentiate between what is a good water and bad water, and you will only be estimating how much water is there. So I told an essential element of politics is also telling what is good or what is bad. That you will understand later. That led to what? Post behavioral revolution, where they brought both facts and values. Okay. So largely you can tell political or scientific theory, they largely deal with facts. Political philosophy largely deal with values. So in ethics also you study something called as value. What is a value? What is value? You have now in ethics you have one, see the whole ethics, what you say, ethics, morality, everything is based on values. We say ethical values, moral values. So what is a value? Belief system, it is belief system, correct? Plain thing he told, see, don't use complex thing, be more practical. Value, okay, I value insights. What is the meaning of that? I give importance to it. Value something, what I give importance. So I value your friendship, means I am giving importance to your friendship. So when you say values, you can say there are certain values accordingly. There can be political values, there can be social values, there can be economic values, there can be cultural values, they can be family values. So how these values are inculcated in you, that what you give importance to. Let us take your parents teach you, say that money is important for life, but money is not itself the life. And they say, no, there is also importance to what? Friendship, human values. So you can say an individual who's grown up in such kind of environment will become a person who will value people over money. But let us think you are born in a family where if no, money is the main thing important, friendship is not important. You will value what more? Money. So that is what we say, how a value is inculcated in a person, there are a lot of roles to play. Family plays a key role. The country which you are born into plays a key role. The society what you are born into plays a key role. The education what you get plays a key role. Right, education is also one of the important terms, how we can impart value. So in education system, let us think, in school books and all, you are taught only to think money minded. They were asked an essay in UPSC. The end of an education is to create moral individuals, not intelligent devils. Education can also give you a lot of skills, but it is also important what you do with that skill. So tomorrow let us say you become a doctor, a very famous surgeon, but you don't have human concern, your only goal is to make money. You are the best doctor in the world, but your only intention is to what? Make money. Question is that, is it required? Now we say many multinational companies, like during COVID time, they patented the drugs. Again, people are dying, but now they're saying patent is very important, we are not ready to give the drugs. So many times value should be there, means what? Your social values should be over your economic values. If you see India and South Africa in WTO, they applied for what? Remove these patents and allow these drugs to be given to developing countries. Why? Because people are dying. So similarly we say in political philosophy, we think about values. Value means what? Value always deals with good or bad. And values is not constant, it can change. Plain and simple, why we say values is not constant, it can change. So what is the difference between morals and ethics? Which is social, which is individual? Correct. Ethics is what we together as a society value. Moral is what I as an individual will value. And that is why we say ethical values are not constant, it can change. So if you go back to 18th century, we as a society believed sati system was fine. But today the values have changed. We as a society have banned sati system. Back then LGBT community, or we can say transgenders, were not considered as equals. Today the values have changed. Again a point. Similarly, moral values is what you individually believe. So when you say political values in that regard, or philosophy, political philosophy, it largely deals with values. Values means what? What is good, what is bad. So when you say value, it should be prescriptive, right? You have to be prescriptive. This is not good, this should be good, etc. Science is not prescriptive. Science is only explanatory. Like let us take natural science, like chemistry. You can tell, now, sir, what is the difference between political science and natural science? In political science, that's why we say, even though the subject carries the name political science, you cannot compare it to mathematics or physics or chemistry. It does make use of mathematical formulas, it can use of certain scientific methods, but fundamentally it largely deals with political questions. So in subjects like biology or chemistry, largely they deal with what? They'll explain photosynthesis, okay, they will explain this is how it will happen. Physics, they will explain this is how it will happen. But here it also involves what? It's not only explaining why this is happening, you also have to prescribe, okay, is it correct what is happening, it is wrong what is happening, okay, what we have to do, etc. And that is why we say any science without values takes away, it's a threat to humanity. Science without values is a threat to humanity. Why? Science is a double-edged sword. Right, science is a double-edged sword. You can use it positively, you can also use it negatively. So you can say with science, using science, today we have brought a lot of medicines which has found cure to a lot of diseases, leprosy, etc. The same science has also dealt with creation of nuclear weapons, and it has led to large-scale destruction. That is why we say what? Science is a double-edged sword. So when we say political science in that regard, we are making use of empirical methods, but that is what that during that time period they said if you try to reduce political science only to biology or chemistry etc., the subject itself will lose relevance, because the job of a political scientist is not only to explain things, the job of a political scientist is also to give solutions to the problems his society is facing at that point of time. Then one, for example, now electoral bond scheme as an example, now you can just explain and tell this is what is happening in electoral bond scheme. Your role does not end there, just explaining what is electoral bond scheme etc. Your role should be also telling how do we cleanse our politics, how do we ensure that there is less criminalization in politics, how do we ensure politics is equally accessible to all. So it should involve what? Explanation and prescription. If you only limit yourself to explanation, what will happen? You need some yardstick now to tell this is good or this is bad. If you tell no, only I am going to explain things, and that is why I say when we say political theory, it includes both political science and political philosophy. So there were two types of theories: philosophical theories, scientific theories. So they have asked direct question: compare and contrast political philosophy and political science. 10 marks. This is a repeated question. They have asked 3-4 times. Plain and simple, you have to write the introduction, what is a political theory, then you can say that the theories comprise of two aspects: philosophical theories, scientific theories. Then what you do is that, see, one trick in exam is that even in optional subject, if you have more number of points, divide the page and write the differences. Let us think you are not able to recall so many points at that moment. Use paragraph technique, because in paragraph technique you will be able to write 150 words etc. with 2 points only what you know, just explain more. But let us think you know more points, you feel that within 150 words that is not possible to explain, that time what you do, have a margin, have 2 sides. Can you understand? Because why I am telling is that here just understanding the concept is not important. Writing and presenting in the exam to score marks is also equally important. Right? If you just prepare and go, let us say you know that. So tomorrow they will ask a question on political science and political. Now you feel that you have a lot of points, but you know that within the given space you are not able to write so much. So there you have to be smart. But in optional subject I am telling, you have to write an introduction compulsory. It is a must. In GS paper chalega, in some places you don't write introduction, but here mandatory always to write an introduction. Once you write an introduction, 2 or 3 lines, then if you want you divide the page, a box, write differences, and mandatorily you have to write a conclusion. So what will be the conclusion you will be writing in this question? Compare political philosophy and political science. So you can say, see, what you will do is that now you are writing in general, but once you go through the notes, there will be certain quotes. Try to quote, like you have a person called as Leo Strauss, or you have one more person called as Dante Germino. So Dante Germino's quote you can use in conclusion. He says that what means you don't need to take down, because you have not yet gone into the approaches of political theory. That time that will be there. This is only an introduction. Dante Germino says that every political theorist is partly a scientist and partly a philosopher. That you can use as your conclusion. So what you need to do is that in the notes lot of quotes will be there. It does not mean you have to read all the quotes. You pick 1 or 2 quotes and have ready-made conclusions in your mind. So when a question like this comes, you have to be readily able to use it. What will happen if you read all the quotes in the notes which is there, you won't be able to recall. Or let us think now you are studying, you also refer external material in that regard. You will find an interesting quote in newspaper or some other material, write and keep it in your book. The other reason is that, now let us think now we will give 2 quotes, everybody here writes the same quote. That is what happened now when Shubhra ma'am notes is there, everybody is writing the same content. How will you differentiate your answer from others? It does not mean that you change the content radically. Change quotes, use new quotes. So then the evaluator will feel what, that you will stand out. Understood? So understood now what you read, you understood what is politics, then you understood what is a political thought, Then you understood what is a political theory, and we read that political theory has two aspects to it. What is it? Philosophical theory and scientific theory. Understood? This much you have to know in this part of introduction to what? Western political thought. Any doubt what you have in this part? So you know the meaning, right? Normative, empirical. So what do you do that for key terms? Have a separate handbook or something, keep taking down the key terms and keep looking, because in subjects like sociology and political science and PubAd, what you'll have to do, you have to use a lot of technical words. Don't use too general words. And technical words are not difficult, just keep reading them again and again, you will pick up. So here what are the two key words you remembered? Normative, empirical. Understood? And in Greek word, politics is called as what? Polis. The word polis deals with city, state. So any doubt? Now we'll go into the, so we understood what is a political thought. So obviously which political thought we are now supposed to read? The Western political thought. So as I said, which is the main aspect of the Western political thought? When we want to study the Western political thought, what I said, which is the source of the Western political thought? It is the Greek political thought. So first I will tell what we will be studying in Greek political thought, then we will go into each part. So when you understood what is a political thought, political ideas which have emerged in a certain context and certain time period. So obviously this we are speaking about in ancient Greece. So that time Greece was not a nation, we are largely speaking about city states. And here we are reading political ideas of largely three important things. Socrates. Socrates is not so important. There is only means when we read Plato or to read Plato, Socrates is a huge influence on Plato. So there is one particular idea, the theory of knowledge, that we need to know, that what he had told and how that has influenced Plato. Then you will be reading about his student Plato, and then you will be reading about Aristotle. But even before we go into these three, you have to know a general understanding of what? The Greek political thought, means features. So when we say general characteristics or features, what do we mean by that? Now we say that features of Indian party system. What do we mean by that? Features of Indian party system. So when you say features, we are not speaking about any one political party. We are not speaking about BJP or Congress in specific. Largely we are telling about in general what are the Indian political parties. So when we say general characteristics, what will happen? There might be one or other party which might not fit into the bracket. You are getting a point. So generally when we say general characteristics of crow, crow means kage. General characteristic, we say it has two wings, it has two legs, it has a beak, it is black in color. But now you will tell, sir, I saw a crow which is white in color. So it does not fit into this. No, there will be always cases. There might be a crow which is born defect. It has only one leg. You have described crow. You are telling it has a beak, it is black in color, it has feathers, it has two legs. But now you find a crow which is white in color and it has only one leg, and now you are telling this does not fit into the characteristics of crow. No, that can't happen. Similarly, when we say features of Greek political thought, there might be differences between three of them, But when we say general characteristic, we have to find what are the common elements in all their thinking. So how the Greeks generally political ideas. Remember, there might be differences between Plato and Aristotle, but we need to find what are the general elements. Understood? So that we have to start with first. What are the general characteristics of Greek political thought? So what we can start with Greek political thought, or to understand why we need to read about Greek political thought, we can say the Western political thought, for its evolution, for its development, it owes lot to Greece. Why? Because the major Western political ideas which are there, like democracy, liberty, let us take the idea of justice, everything has evolved from writings of whom? Plato and Aristotle. And that is why you have one person called as Professor Moyer, who says that the European thought and approaches to understanding life, has been permanently molded by Greeks. This is one of the opinion given by what? Professor Moyer. So for social science subject, what one thing you have to make an habit from now on is that try to read certain quotes, try to bring certain quotes in your answer, especially for the Western political thought and the Indian political thought answers. I am not telling read 100 different quotes, have one or two quotes, and it's not necessary that every word has to be reproduced the same way. Largely you have to give the meaning what they mean to say. Don't change their meaning what they are trying to say. Yeah, one or two words here and there, it's fine. So what Professor Moyer is saying that the European thought and approaches to understanding life has been permanently molded by the Greeks. What does he mean by that? Plain and simple, what we discussed just now. The evolution of the Western political thought, it cannot be separated or segregated from the contribution of the Greeks to it. So who are the Greeks he is speaking about? Plato and Aristotle. And that is why we say that the whole Western political thought, is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. The whole Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. See here in political science what they can do, if you have referred previous year question, especially part A, most of the questions in Western political thought will be usually in form of a quotation. If you have seen the question paper, or how many of you brought question bank, have kept question bank? So first and foremost, buy a question bank, keep frequently looking at question. Most of the questions in Western political thought will be in form of a quote. This only they can give as a question. Plain and simple. The whole Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle, comment. That time what I will do is that I will start my introduction with this. Professor Moyer says that the European thought and approaches to understanding the life has been permanently molded by the Greeks. Then I will go on to write Plato and Aristotle have contributed a lot to the development of the Western political. How? I am going to give 3-4 examples that you will know once you read Plato and Aristotle. Then I am going to conclude my answer saying that we cannot segregate the Greek political thought from the Western political thought. Understood? So both these statements indicate what? Both these statements indicates that Greeks played a very key role in development of the Western political thought. So who are the Greeks? Plato, Aristotle, even Socrates to a certain extent. Now we have to look into what are the features of the Greek. So as I told, this is not specific to Plato, Aristotle or somebody. In general, what are the important ideas during Greek period? So we have to look into the general characteristics, the general characteristics of the Greek political thought. So one more thing what you have to keep in your mind here is that, see in especially UPSC exams in that regard, if you see in mains syllabus, what is one thing you have observed in mains they are doing in let us say last 5 years, since last 5 years regarding mains questions? Philosophy, that is essay, but I am telling with GS paper or with optional paper, analytical. Questions will be analytical in mains. So they are not giving the question from only one chapter, they are intermixing 2 or 3 chapters. Again a point. Let us think now one person has read Greek political thought, he will tell, okay, I will take my risk, I won't read out Indian political thought, anyway one question will come. In optional paper, one advantage what you have is that all questions are not compulsory to answer. There will be 8 questions in optional paper. So it will be 4 questions in part A, 4 questions in part B. The first question and the 5th question, that is 10 into 5. 10 into 5 means there will be 5 10 marker question. Both are compulsory. 1 and 5 compulsory, you have to answer. With the remaining questions what are there, you have to write at least 2 and 1 from either part. Either you write 2 here, 1 here, or you write 2 here or 1 here. So how much you can? 2, 1 plus 2, totally 5 questions. So 5 into 50, 250 marks. Remaining 3 questions you can leave, you can choose. So what was happening is that now many people used to take risk, saying that okay, I am going to ignore this part, it's fine, if they give I am going to leave out the question. Now what UPSC is trying to do is that, to ensure that student lives, covers all the syllabus, they are asking comparative questions. Let us say you read Western political thought, you decide okay, one question will come from Indian political thought, I will leave it out. They have now started asking, compare and contrast the Indian political thought and the Greek political thought. So now you are reading out Greek political thought, next you will read out Indian political thought. So what will happen in exam they are doing is that, they are doing you compare and tell, because when you look at Greek political thought and Indian political thought, you find lot of similarities also. One of the reasons why there is a lot of similarities, this Plato who is there, he has been influenced from various Greek scholars like Pythagoras, the Pythagoras theorem is there, he is also Greek. So he has influenced Plato's thinking, and Pythagoras had come to India. So when you look at Greek political thought and if you take this ancient Hindu political thought, you find there is a lot of similarities in their thinking. For example, the Greeks, they believe that inequality is natural. I don't know, soul, human soul, God has not gifted everybody the same purity of soul. Same thing in Indian political thought, the caste hierarchy means we divide the society into 4 caste groups, like 4 varnas. Similarly, Plato, he divides their society into 3 classes, the soldier class, the ruling class, the common man. And the Greeks also, they also are largely philosophical, like the Socrates who was there, he largely spoke about, you can find the ideas of Socrates is very much similar to the philosophies brought by Shankaracharya, who is that, Madhavacharya in Hindu political thought. Means Shankaracharya spoke about the concept of Maya. So whatever you see in the physical world, it is not the reality. Example he told, let us think you see a rope from very far away, it can appear to you as a snake. So unless you touch it, unless you feel it, you can't sense it reality. Socrates also speaks about the same thing. He also speaks about there are two worlds, physical world and the world of ideas, and he says physical world is not the real world. And both in Hindu political thought and Greek political thought, they largely stressed on what the people who have education and courage should rule. So you have Kshatriyas, Kshatriya dharma is to what? To fight. So Plato also brought the ideas of philosopher, king, but there are differences also between them. So you can say that they have asked these kind of questions, compare and contrast Greek political thought and Indian political thought. This they have started doing in recent times. Why they have started doing it? Make sure that student does not leave out any part of the syllabus. That's why I told when you are reading about Greek political thought, later when we read about Indian political thought, don't read them separately. Sit and think for 2 minutes. Okay, what is the similarities? What is the differences? For the mains exam, that's why I told. Don't think mains exam is more about reading the content, going and reproducing in the exam. That UPSC definitely won't allow it to do in mains. And why some people will get main strategy wrong? Their thinking is that what we have one set of notes, we'll read that notes and we'll go and write off the exam. It won't happen. Any subject you take. Now for marketing, I can tell, see this notes is there, 100% you read this note, same content will come. That I'll be lying if you tell it's plain marketing, because mainly students also what they will, student mentality is what they want, sir please tell me an optional very small to read, very easy to read, very high to score. It's like asking, sir tell me I want to eat popcorn, I want to eat KFC but I want to have 6-pack ab. It's not going to happen. Unless you hit the gym, you work out, you eat healthy, you are not going to have 6-pack ab. Same thing here. So that's why I told here what you need to do is that think a lot rather than just read. So when you have read something, you need to think on it, why it is, how it is happening, why it will happen. So when we read Greek political thought, when you read Indian political thought, we will make a comparison. Got it? So now when we look at general characteristics of Greek political thought, one important feature of the Greek political thought is it is an exclusively a political treatise. It is an exclusively a political treatise. So what do you mean by a political treatise? What is meant by political treatise? What does it mean a treatise? A document. So when we say it is a political treatise, why we are using the word exclusive? This is where you find one difference between the Indian political thought and the Greek political thought. In Indian political thought or Hindu political thought especially, you find lot of intermixing of religion and politics. There is no clear-cut separation of the same. So when you read Ramayana, Mahabharata, or even say Bhagavad Gita in that regard, there are important political messages, but they are in terms of what? Religious explanation. It is not directly explained. For example, you take in Indian political thought also, like in Bhagavad Gita, if you take, there is concept of Nyaya and Niti. Justice, what we say in English word is justice. So in Bhagavad Gita also there is the concept of Nyaya and Niti. If you go into the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, when the war will start, when the war will be about to start, Arjuna will be in an ethical dilemma, whether to fight the war or not fight the war. Why he has dilemma in that regard? He is a Kshatriya, he has to fight, but whom he has to fight? His own brothers in that regard, the Kauravas. And who is there in the Kaurava camp? The very teacher who taught him how to fight, Dronacharya. And it is also what a student should not fight his own master. He was stuck, he told, I can't fight. So Krishna resolved his crisis. He spoke about, you are only speaking about Niti, but don't forget about Nyaya, or what he used the word Dharma. And he told, if you want to protect Nyaya, certain times it's okay to break the Niti. So even in Hindu political thought, there are ideas about what you can say justice, role of the king, etc. But they are all in the form of religious messaging. It is not exclusively a political treatise. But if you take the Greek political thought, there is very little mixing of religion and politics in that regard. Largely it is an exclusive political treatise, or important political ideas or political problems have been dealt with it. That is why we call it as what? An exclusively political treatise. So when you compare Hindu political thought, Indian political thought, you can find that you can't separate politics and religion. They are tightly intermixed. They can't be compartmentalized. Second thing, the main focus what the Greeks have focused on, the nature of the state. Largely the Greeks have focused on what? The nature of the state. So what do you mean by nature of the state? Largely they have focused on. They have dealt with questions such as, how did state come into being? Okay, what is the functions of the state? What are the qualities of an ideal ruler? So you look into questions of the books written by Plato. Plato has written 3 books: Republic, the Laws, the Statesman. Aristotle has written one important book called as Politic or Politics. Largely what is there in these books? Largely these books deals with the question of what is an ideal ruler, how to build a good government, what is a good type of government, how did the state come into being. So if you look at today, we say a state, Indian state is there. How this state was created? Today we have Indian state, right? President is the head of the Indian state. How was the state created? Freedom movement. Basically we had a constituent assembly, the constituent assembly framed a constitution, that is how the state came into being. In a way you can say the Indian state is a creation of a contract between us. If you read our preamble, what does it say? We the people of India have solemnly resolved to give ourselves a constitution, and this constitution creates a state. But back in their time, if you take Aristotle and Plato, they don't believe that state is artificial. Today for us we can say state is created by us, man-made, artificial entity. But for them state is not artificial, state is natural. That you will understand once you read Aristotle especially. Aristotle says what? One who lives outside the state is either God or beast. It's beast. Why am I saying it's beast is I told previously also. One fellow last year he had come. He told, what sir, one thing I'll do sir, I am reading Subraranjan notes. Please I'll write answer and I'll come. I told okay fine. We told I can't go to coaching and okay fine. Then he came, one day he wrote answer. One who lives outside the state is God or goat. I told Allah Guru, young is God or goat, how? He told no, that is what is written in the notes. I told Subramam is not a fool to write God or goat. You have read it wrong because he has taken Xerox. That fellow has written in class, he has listened wrongly and he has written God or goat. This fellow has read it wrongly. So second question I asked him is that, forget about that is beast or goat. It means what? You have not understood only what you have read. Had you understood the meaning of that quote, then you would have cross-questioned why it is goat, how it is goat. Blind reading by heart. Why Aristotle told like that? One who lives outside the state is either God or beast. For Aristotle, if you want to be a human, you need somebody to guide you, to somebody to tell you what is good or what is bad. And for that, who is that somebody? State. And for Aristotle, how state came into being? It is natural. God has created the state. So he says, if you are not living under the state, you are living outside the state. God is perfect. God does not need anybody to guide him to tell what is right or what is wrong. Beasts are animals. Animals live in the wild. They don't have any discipline. Difference between man and animal is what? If you think we are also, your animal movie has come. You know, tell I am also animal. That is what he has showed in the movie, what is an animal. Animal will fight, animal will reproduce, animal will die. Animal can't think. That is what animal, na. But humans are not animals, right? We can't be animal. What is one difference between us and wild animals? We have reason. What is reason? The capacity to understand, logic. Animals do not have logic. That is why when we say, when tiger kills a man, we won't arrest the tiger and put in jail and tell, okay, you are imprisoned for 3 years for killing a man. They are wild animals, they don't have logic, they can't. But if humans does it, we'll punish them. You understand, there is some logic, right? If you take even in polity, article 14 in that regard, there is something called as equal protection of the law. What is equal protection of the? Treating apples and oranges differently. So you take, if a 6 months, let us say a 1-year-old baby accidentally while playing it put a knife to somebody's neck and that fellow died accidentally. Now you can't put that 1-year-old baby in prison and tell we'll arrest you, we'll imprison you, because the child's reason is not developed. But the same thing if an adult does, we'll punish them. So there is one difference between animals and humans. Humans have the power of reason. So what Aristotle told, the state will help you develop reason. So he told, if you are a man, if you are a human being, for him man is a social animal. You can't live individually, you always live in a group. When you live in a group, obviously fights will happen, differences will emerge, and you need somebody to sort out these differences. Who told the state? But how state is created, he'll tell it is natural. It has naturally emerged. So that is why he told, one who lives outside the state, either he should be God, either he should be beast. So that's why I told you how it is got or God. Basically, it's just by hearted it. That's why I told you, in exam, by heart won't work unless we have understood the concept. So if you take Greeks, Greeks largely speak about the nature of the state, how state come into being, what should be the, what you can say, how the state should function, what should be the duties of the state, etc. That is the second important feature. Once you read general characteristics, then you go specific, what Plato has told, what Aristotle has told. But in general, what is one? Exclusively it is a political treatise. Second one, what? Nature of the state. Third one, they largely stress on social nature of man. They largely stress on social nature of man. What do you mean by that? They largely stress on social nature of man. So in political science, means we have not read ideologies or philosophies. There are two important ideologies, or we can say two important school of thought. What do you mean by school of thought? Let us say now, we four people, we have similar thinking. We comprise one school of thought. They four people, they have a different thinking. They comprise one more school of thought. So when you say school of thought, similar thinking thinkers coming under one umbrella, we can call it as a school of thought. So one school of thought is individualism. The other school of thought is communitarianism. Okay, not communalism, communitarianism. So what is the difference between individualism and communitarianism? So where do you find individual? You have read, if you have read economy, if you have read international relations. I'm going to give an example. In economy, I'm giving a clue. Economy is the clue. Communism comes under communitarianism. For how many of you economy classes has been done? Not been done yet. Have you heard of this? Laissez-faire. It's a French word. Means what? Leave alone, no interference. Why they say leave alone, no interference? Why market, how market will work, how supply and demand will work. People, how people know what they want. So basically people are rational, people are self-capable. You are the best thing, you know that what is good for you, what is bad for you. You have complete capacity to meet your needs. There is no need for state to interfere. So the idea of individualism is largely strongly found in liberal ideology. Same thing in political field, when you apply it becomes liberalism. If you apply in economic field, it becomes capitalism. Understood? So this idea of individualism is that what? Even though we live in a society, every man for himself. First I will care about my interest. I believe that you guys don't have any contribution to my growth. My growth is of my own capacity. Neither the state has played a role, neither church has played a role, neither society has played a role. So I don't need to do anything for the society. So that is what capitalism is about. Capitalism is about personal growth, personal interest. Communitarianism is the opposite of it. It believes that individuals alone cannot do anything. So okay, food production. Can you do everything on your own? You need community, society. You belong to a particular group within the society. You might have an identity. You might belong to Hindu, you might be a Muslim, you might be Christian. Your community also has a role to play in how you develop. So individualism you see largely in whose writings is that? This John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, Rousseau, J.S. Mill. Then you have criticism of them, communitarians, Michael Sandel, Charles Taylor. When you take Plato and Aristotle in that regard, they believed in what? Man is social by nature. He told man cannot live all alone like an isolated island. He always needs to live in a group. He needs a group. So that is what in Greek ideas you see, that they were largely believers in community living. That is why they largely believe that man is social by nature. So when man is social by nature, state will have to play a key role. In liberalism, if you see, that is why they believe in what? Minimal state. State should not interfere, state should not have any functions, let individuals free. But in Greek political thought, they believed that what? State plays a very key role. And why state should play a key role? Because man by nature is a social animal. He cannot exist all alone. He always lives in a group. That is the third important characteristics. Fourth important characteristics. So obviously their focus was on what? There was no idea of nation at that point of time. Largely whatever they wrote, whatever they spoke about was about what? City states. Their main study was largely about city states. You know, right, what is a city state? In Greece, what the cities were there? They were only independent kingdoms or independent country. So they largely spoke about a city state. There was no idea of nation state at that point of time. Fifth, the other important feature you find in Greek political thought, they stressed a lot on education. They gave a lot of importance to what? Education, both Plato and Aristotle. See to what extent was that? For Plato, he gave the concept of philosopher king, and for him the philosopher king is the most educated person in the city state. And Plato is also famous for what? His book Republic. This is a book written by him. This book has been praised by a person called as Rousseau. So what Rousseau has said, he said Republic is the best treatise ever written on education. There is no other greater book written on education. Context I will explain later that why this Plato brought education system, what is his education system, etc. But in Greek writings what you find is that they stress a lot on education. Even Aristotle, he also gave a lot of importance to education. Even Socrates. Socrates said, knowledge is virtue. What is the meaning of, he said what? knowledge is virtue. What do you mean by virtue? Having high moral standards. What do you mean by having high moral standards? Deciphering what is good and what is bad, and mention that you have good characteristics, good moral standards. To have good moral standards, what is important? Knowledge is important. What is knowledge? Reason, ability to understand the reality. And for Socrates, he spoke about two types of knowledge: true knowledge, illusion knowledge. He told majority of people are in illusion, like you guys. No, what is illusion? Everybody is in one illusion. Now let us say, no, he thinks that what, tomorrow if I clear UPSC exam, like some people will tell you, one fellow will be what, to be more precise, what Socrates says that to understand what is the true purpose of life, that's why it's a philosophy. He says, what is the true purpose of life, why I am born, why I should live, etc. He says happiness. But again, what is happiness? He says that for that you need to have knowledge to understand what gives you happiness. So he says that there are two types of knowledge. One, you can be in real happiness, the other you can be in illusion of happiness. So let us say, now what is an illusion of happiness? Now a person, let us say, who have not cracked prelims from 3 years, he will think, if I clear prelims, I will be very happy. That is my happiness. Yes, I cleared prelims at last. Now there is a person who has cleared mains, prelims 2-3 times, he has not cleared mains. So for him, what is happiness? Okay, if I get one interview call, then I will be happy. Now you would take people like who have gone to interview call, who have not qualified. So some post I had got, I would have been very happy, like me. Now you tell that some post who have not got into IAS or IPS, they will think, I cleared the exam, but why didn't I get IAS or IPS? I would have been happy, recognition would have been there, etc. Even though now I am some post, nobody recognizes me. Take a IPS guy, he will tell, I became IPS, but still I have to go salute to the IAS fellow. If I had been IAS, I would have been completely happy. You can see large number of IPS guys write exam again. And we look at IAS guys in that regard. Now one fellow would have become IAS, he is in Northeast. He would have thought, instead of that, I would have been happy if I was IPS Karnataka instead of being IAS in Tripura. Karnataka guy who is there. Let us say a person who is IAS in Karnataka, who is IAS, he would have thought, no, I have got posting in some Bagalkot. If I had got in Mandya, I would have been very happy, because Mandya might be his home district. Person who is in Mandya has got all the posting might say that I have everything, but my family life is not good. So what the Socrates says that if you chase matter, you are never going to be happy. He says that in world there are two things. There are two worlds, the world of matter, the world of ideas. And he says that the material world, what is matter? This chair is matter, this bench is matter, your body is matter. Why he calls it as matter? Matter is something which does not have permanence. Anything which does not have permanence, for Socrates, it's matter. And when you want to possess a matter or material thing, you can never be happy. Why you can never be happy? It is never permanently go with you. See, power. Today you have power. 100% you will lose. Human history has shown there is no person who has been power for unlimited time. It's like a cycle. You come to power, you will come down. Plain and simple, you can be an IAS today, but after 60 years you have to retire. Money, same thing. Today you might have money, tomorrow you might not have money, or some person that does not have money today, tomorrow he might get money. So for him, he said that what? You cannot be happy with material things. So he says that if you are aspiring for material things in that regard, means what? You don't know what is the true meaning of happiness. And you have even this ISKCON Gopal Gaurdas who is there, and who also has explained this mechanism. So let us think that now I'll give her a cup of water in plastic glass, she'll drink it. I'll give him a cup of water in steel glass, he'll drink it. I'll give him a cup of water in silver glass, he'll drink it. I will give him a cup of water in platinum glass. Oh, he is happy, but sir gave me in platinum, for him he gave him silver, this fellow in steel, for her they gave in plastic cup. but end of the day all drank them the same water. It does not matter in which cup you drank. So for him, the more important is water. It is not the cup what you drink, because it is not permanent. So all of them, so that's why I told you, Socrates, what he spoke about knowledge is virtue. It was a deep impact on Plato. How it impacted Plato? Plato thought about why there is corruption in politics. He told because people who are ruling, they don't know what is happiness, and they use power for what? To maximize more power, to make, because they are running behind material things. And that is why we say in the Greek writings, you see, there is a very strong stress on what? Education. So education is one important aspect of what? The Greek political thought. So you can say they gave a lot of importance to education. Sixth, the other important element of the Greek political thought is rationalism or reasoning. What is meant by rationalism? Or what is being irrational? Or what do you mean by you are a person with great reason? What is rational thinking? You don't accept anything without, what you can say, reasoning or logic. So we say that rationality is very important in any society. So if you say that, no, for example, sir, in our village, monsoon has failed, so we are marrying 2 dogs, tomorrow it is going to rain. What is the logic? How? See, what can be irrational is that, let us think someday you are sitting, you married a dog, it rained, one time it rained. So now you assume that, okay, if dogs are married, it is going to rain again, and you go keep marrying dogs. There is no logic to it. Why there is no logic to it? You are not able to explain that why that mechanism happened. I don't know, for example, I have told before also, I think in GS class also, in one village there was one person who went to that village. He was a rational person who went to that village, and in that village they were doing this thing, puja, or what you can say, homa. So they tied a cat before they did the puja or homa, and then they started doing puja. So this will ask them, why you are tying the cat? He told, I don't know, this is what we have followed from years. So he told, whom to ask? He told, you ask my dad. So he asked that fellow, why you are going to tie the cat? He told, I don't know, even my father used to do, even we are doing the same thing. So he told, okay, he asked his dad, why you guys are doing that? That was a very old man. He told, these fools, I am telling from that time, they are not understanding. In our times, where the cat used to come and drink of milk when you used to do the puja, that is why I used to tie the cat. Now they thought this is a tradition. So irrationalism means when there is no logic to what you are doing. Rationalism is that there is strong reason, there is a strong questioning. Questioning starts with why, how, etc. So the Socrates, we say there is a Socratic method. For Socrates, the truth can be only discovered through what? Through debates, dialogues, and that is what we say dialectics. Same, we start with an argument. So you will tell, now, what is a tree? Now you will tell, okay, this is a tree. Now I will ask a question, how can you say this is a tree? What are the characteristics of a tree? You will tell, okay, branches are there, roots are there, etc. You are getting mind. If you know the idea of a tree, whether it is eucalyptus tree or it is teak, it is sandalwood, etc. Now you know this is the idea of a tree. We can come to a conclusion, okay, this is the functions what the tree does. Logically, yes, this is a tree. If you have no logic, now tomorrow I can show you something else with board and say, see, look, this is also a tree. Getting the point? So Greeks never accepted anything without logic, debate or dialogue. And that is what we say. For example, Plato used Socrates' dialectics method to arrive at the idea of justice. Question is that, no, what is justice? Okay, what is justice? That's the first question we'll start. So this Republic book, what he has written, there he has created multiple characters and he will bring debate between those characters to explain the idea of justice. So to give you one example of a dialogue, one person will tell Plato, Plato will ask, means Plato asking means he has created a character called as Socrates. Through Socrates he is asking the question. So he'll tell what is justice according to you. So that fellow will tell justice according to me is doing your duty. So Socrates will tell even I'll agree with it. Yes, justice even I can agree. Doing your duty is one of the core aspects. Now what has happened? Both have agreed on to that. Then he'll tell what is the other aspect of justice. That fellow will tell. Another fellow will tell justice means you have to give back what is once due. Means you have borrowed something from somebody, you give it back. So this Socrates will tell I don't agree. This does not do. So that fellow will tell why don't you agree. So he'll give a situation. Let us think your friend comes to you with a very powerful what you can say weapon like a gun etc. and he'll give it to you and he'll tell him going out of station. Once I come back, you please give it back to me. Now once he comes back, you observe that he has lost his mental stability. He's gone mental. Question what he'll ask is that will you give back the gun to him? So he says that I don't agree with that logic. Justice does not always involve give him back once due. So what they're using is that what is that Socratic method of dialectics in that regard? Through dialogues, when both parties are able to come to an understanding, okay, this is what it is, then you discover the truth. And what is the advantage of a debate or a dialogue? What Socrates says that through dialogues or debates, we will convert our beliefs into knowledge. You can mind, belief and knowledge are different. You might believe something, but that belief is not always the truth. Knowledge is what? What is the established truth? So how can you convert your belief into knowledge? It is only through dialogues. It is only through engagement. You can mind, a classic simple example. Let us think that now you see two people, they are very two close friends, like two guys. Okay, they put hand on each other, etc. Now you have a belief that he is gay. That is your belief, that is your observed and your thinking. So obviously that is your belief, that might not be the truth. Only when you interact with them, only when he gives a clarity, then you can assume that okay, if he admits that yes I am gay. Get in mind, belief and knowledge are different. Belief is not the truth. It's your version of truth, it's your thing. So how do we arrive at truth? Through engagement, through dialogues, through debates. And he says what is the advantage of a debate is that a debate will ensure you that even you can test your beliefs whether that comes under the category of truth or not. Because if one person tells and there is no challenger to that what he is saying, then how can the truth be discovered? Na? You are getting a point. So it's only through debates, only through engagement. That is why Socrates encouraged a lot of questioning. And why Socrates was killed in that regard, or why he was sentenced to death, because he put a lot of questions to the people who were ruling Athens and they were not comfortable with it. But that is Socrates. Socrates what is that? You can discover truth only through what? Dialogue, debates. So that is what we say. They gave lot of emphasis to what? Rationalism, reasoning. And the next important feature is that they speak about the idea of justice. So you can say both Plato, Aristotle, they largely emphasize on the question of what is justice, how is justice implemented, how and why justice is important. So when we read Plato and Aristotle, we will be reading Plato's idea of justice and Aristotle's idea of justice. Eighth one, they also speak on about citizenship. The idea of citizenship. So one thing you need to understand here, their idea of citizenship is not present day idea, right? So present day idea of citizenship you take in many countries. In some countries they follow jus soli, in some countries they follow jus sanguinis. But here their idea was not based on jus soli or jus sanguinis. It is based on the idea of active citizenship. Means if you perform certain political duties, only then you will be considered as a citizen. You have to be participate in public affairs. If you are not participating in public affairs, like what Upendra says, Satta Prajegalo, so they won't allow them to have any kind of citizenship. You are only actively participating, then only you are considered to be a citizen. And there are certain rights of the citizen, etc. They speak about that we look into when we read both Plato and Aristotle. Ninth important feature is that the Greek political thought largely believed that inequality was natural. See, this is one similarity with the Indian political thought. Even if you take the ancient Hindu political thought, the ancient Hindu political thought also believed that inequality is natural. Means everybody are not born as equals. So you have Aristotle in one of the statement, what he says that Aristotle in one of the statement he says that from hour of birth, from hour of birth, some are meant to be rulers and others to be slaves. So what did Aristotle say? From hour of birth, some are meant to be rulers, they have natural endowed capacity to rule, and others are to be slaves. Even if you take Plato, he divided the society into three classes based on his theory of souls, and he only told those who have reason, only they can rule. Means what? Naturally, every soul does not have reason. So the Greek political thought holistically believed that what? Inequality is natural. That is by nature. God has not created everybody as equals. And that is why Aristotle told treating equals equally, unequally is justice. It's not in today's sense. Today's sense it is different. Today's sense we say that it is more on a positive sense we say. For example, in our constitution, same idea is there, but not in the perspective what Aristotle is telling. In our constitution, the idea is that if you take OBCs, the SCs, the STs, the women, the children, etc., these are all considered to be vulnerable sections. So there are extra benefits to them. Aristotle is not speaking about vulnerable sections. He is telling, he gave a concept called as masters and slaves. Okay, and he told masters have the right to own these slaves. A master and a slave cannot be treated as equal. Again, mind, it's more in a negative sense. Master and master should be treated equally, slaves and slaves should be treated equally, but master and slave cannot be never treated equally. That is why we say inequality is one of the most important element within the Greek political thought. So these are the main features of what? Greek political thought. Plain and simple. So next when we read later, means that is after the Western political theory, Indian political thought, you have to come back to this chapter and make a comparison. Okay, how Greeks thinking is different and how the Indian or the ancient Hindu political thought is similar and different, because this is one of the questions they've asked in previous year exam. So you're getting the point. Please refer to a lot of PYQs. Okay, because if you don't go through PYQs, that's what I'm telling, study through PYQs. What is there in PYQ, give importance to it, don't read everything. The reason is that largely the question paper in political science will be based on, that's why I told many people think what it is a very dynamic subject, but actually if you look at the question paper, there is a lot of repeated questions they are asking. That is the case with every optional subject. In optional subject, UPSC has not gone into newer areas, they are asking the same repeated themes. So when you look at previous year questions, you will get ideas, okay, what to study in this topic, what to not study in this topic, or how to study this topic. So one of the questions they have asked here, I told you, what? Direct question once they have asked, enumerate the important features of the Greek political thought. Or one more question they have asked, what do you understand by political theory, and differentiate between political science and political philosophy. Or other question they have asked is that history cannot be segregated from political thought. Or the other question they have asked, compare and contrast the Greek political thought and the Indian political thought. Or one more question they have asked is that compare Western political thought and Indian political thought. Got the point? Yeah. So that's why I told, before you read the topic or once you read the topic, please refer the previous year questions. Why? Because let us say you discover a question which is slightly asked in a different direction, then we can sit and discuss in class or what can be the answer or what content can be added. Got the point? So one thing will be previous year questions. Currently we are not writing any previous year questions. Why? Because I need some time for you to develop content, but once we develop the content, we will start writing a lot of PYQs in class. Understood? Any doubt in this part about features of Greek political thought? So let us think, if they ask a question, discuss the features of Greek political thought. So how will you write your answer? I am not asking the exact answer, just tell me the structure. Let us think they'll ask for 10 marks, 150 words. How will you write the answer? Introduction of? Okay. Introduction of Greek politics. Okay, introduction, what you are going to give? Greek political thought. So what do you are going to write there? Introduction of Greek political thought. Good. You can write about Professor Moyer's statement. You can start with Professor Moyer. Or the other alternative is that you can write the whole Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. Or even after, then what you will write after this? You wrote the introduction as this. Good. Then who gave? Okay. Then you can tell the Greek political ideas largely are enumerated or elucidated by Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. Don't explain in detail now. Just write their names, that's enough. Because 150 word question, you can't explain too much and all. Then, no, don't go there. Why I'm telling 150 words? You can't write more. Just you introduced the statement of importance of Greek political thought. You told who are the important Greek scholars. Move on to the next part. What you'll write? Plain and simple. Directly give a subheading called as features 1, 2. So since it's a 150 word question, try to don't explain too much. Try to write more points, short explanation to it. Then what you do? Let us say you write 5-6 points. Then ending, what you do? I have to write a conclusion. So since introduction you used Professor Moyer, in conclusion either use the whole Western political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato, Aristotle, or if you have written that as an introduction, write Professor Moyer's statement as your conclusion. Get your point? So that's why I told one advantage in optional subject, since the question repeats, you can have pre-prepared introductions and conclusions. Body you will write if you know the content. So you see now in keywords, you don't need to remember the whole sentence. Rationalism, justice, nature of state, inequality is natural, importance given to education, exclusive political treatise. Exclusive political, just write one sentence in your own words, that is enough. You're getting a point. So when you make your short notes also, it should be only this much, nothing more in detail. Got it? You're getting an idea. So whatever we read, we'll go through PYQs. So the ultimate aim of the program is not only to make you know political science, you have to be able to write political science. Because saying or that won't get you marks. What will get you marks? Writing. So in mains exam, what is most important? So optional carries almost 500 marks. So in any GS paper if you take, even if you read exceptionally well, there will be always 1% of students that who are exceptional. Let us take on an average student. Average he scores around 90 to 100 out of 250. That is the average score. Exceptional scores are 120, that is 1 in like 5000. So if you take 90 to 100 out of 250, but if you see an optional subject, what is the average scoring? Average is only 120. If you take political science, so it is doing well. Average only you can score, with minimum effort you can score 120. But there are people who are scoring 150, 160. So you can score almost how much? 310. Clear in mind, you can make a huge difference here. In GS, what will happen is that whatever effort you put in that regard, let us say in optional one fellow is scoring 240, you are scoring 310, you are gaining almost 70 marks. In GS paper, to gain 70 marks, how much effort you have to put in? That is very, very difficult to take a lead over average candidates above 70 marks. That is what I told, only the top 10 ranked students will be there, they would have scored. But certain times even in top 10, if you see, some people would have scored 350, 340 in optional subject, their GS score will be average only. So if you strategize essay, optional, interview, these three are important. Why? Essay requires minimum effort. See, essay also, right? Essay, there are scoring how much on an average? 120, 130. Okay, if you're slightly good, let us think you scored 140, because in essay I used to score always well. My essay scores you can see are uploaded on Twitter. My Twitter has been hacked. Again I have to upload. So 140, 148 used to get. Why? Because you are good in options like PSIR and all. I'm not telling you can use PSIR knowledge, but like you read about Socrates, you have those ideas, philosophical ideas to link and write. So in essay, suppose you score 140, in optional you score 300, and in interview you scored 180. In GS, let us say you scored average, you should not score below average, average score. 100% you will be in top 50. So the strategy is what? For GS papers, it's not so easy to increase your marks. In GS on an average, how much they will score? 405 to 430. For GS papers if you take together. So that's why I said here your main focus is to write and score well. That's what I told. Preparing UPSC is not preparing only subjects. You have to strategize where you need to score, how you need to score. Okay, how I am going to score that extra marks. Understood? And that's what in mains, how much ever you read, how much ever knowledge you have, if your knowledge is not reflected on your paper, simple na. How much ever you read, how much ever knowledge you have, you can come here and become faculty. Because being a faculty does not need writing skills, speaking skills. Same, if you come and tell, sir, okay, sir, you write this answer in 12 minutes. Evaluating is easy job. If you come and tell, write this, you should have included that committee unit have linked, this should be there. Yeah, that is suggestion. But if you tell the same faculty, sir, no, you write, sir, in 10 minutes, you write, I'll give you time, immediately you write now. Reality is different, na. So that's why be more practical. You cannot see in saying you can build Taj Mahal. No, I can tell introduction, this conclusion, this you link, that you link, wonderful answer will be there. Forget that. Think about reality. 3 hours time, 20 questions. Do you really think you can recall everything and write? No. If you have practiced that way, writing more answers with the time pressure, then your mind will work. And that's why I told, what many students we do, they don't do writing practice and all. They only do reading and this material hunting. End of the day, what will happen? After 3-4 attempts, all that material will go into bookshop, or what can say. They'll give money, they'll put the weight and they'll give money and they'll tell. So you have to make sure that you make that count into your scores, that how much you're going to score. That's why I told. The topic is done, look at the questions. These are the questions they've asked. Compare and contrast Indian political thought, Greek political thought. You have not yet read Indian political thought, that is why you have not answered that question. Other question what they've asked, discuss the features of the Greek political thought. What is the idea of writing? Introduction should be good. Then you write about who are the thinkers. Then you write about the features. Then you write a conclusion. Or other question what they've asked, compare and contrast political philosophy and political science. There how you are going to write? Introduction you are going to write about what is political theory. Then you are going to tell political theory has 2 parts. Then you are going to divide your page and write what are the differences. Then you are going to conclude. Other question what they have asked, history cannot be segregated from political thought. Comment. For this question, you just cannot explain, you have to give a lot of examples. That's what I told. For this question to write, first you have to know 3-4 thinkers. There you have to know where they've used history to explain their political ideas. Got it? Any doubt in this part? So now let's move on to the first thinker what we are going to read, that is Plato. Yeah, Socrates will come when we are trying to read Plato, because here we need to understand, see now for 9 thinkers what you are going to read, one common theme will be there. So printed material are already uploaded. That printed material is short notes, ready-made notes that can be used in exam. But the written notes what will be, that will be detailed comprehensive notes. That is only for your reading purpose. So what you do once you read the written material, then you can switch on to that small content material, that is for quick revision, etc. Now there is one common theme in all thinkers. One, we need to understand their time period, what they belong to. Then you have to know about the important works they have written. Why I am telling about works? In your answer, please try to mention about the works of the scholars. I am not telling not all the works, any 1 or 2 works what you remember, try to bring it in your paper, because the evaluator should feel, okay, this person is a person who has read political science. Okay, man, the language what you use in your paper, that a political science professor who evaluates, he should feel, okay, this fellow knows the subject. So how do you show that you have knowledge? Try to write works. I am not telling all works, remember one important work of each scholar. Then we have to remember, or we have to know about their influences. I don't know, every political thinker, as Lasky said, is a child of his times. There might be conditions that has influenced, there might be readings, what he has read that have influenced. We have to see what are their influences. Then we have to go into important ideas they have presented. And please remember, since it's a social science subject, for every idea there will be always a counter idea. Means what? There will be criticism. Criticism from whom? There can be criticism from people of his age, during his time, like Aristotle. There might be criticism from scholars of present times. You have one person called as Karl Popper, who is a huge critic of Plato. He compares Plato to be the first fascist. Okay, we'll look into it, why he calls him the first fascist, etc., etc. And at the same time, there will be also supporters of Plato. Means those who have praised Plato, like you had Rousseau, who told the book Republic, what Plato has written, it is one of the best treatise which has been ever written in that regard. So this is what we have to know in every thinker. And please don't be worried about other things about Plato, just important political ideas. So whatever is there in the notes, that is more than enough. So important ideas given by Plato is his theory of soul. Okay, these are important ideas what he has given. Theory of soul, his education scheme, then there is something called as communism of wives and property. Then we have his views on justice, Plato's idea of justice. Then we need to read about his views on law. Then we need to read about his views on philosopher king. So if you want to connect the dots in that regard, there is a link between each one of the things. Taken down. So anyway, I'll write in the same thing in the next page. So if we look at his idea of philosopher king, it is central to his idea. It is the central idea what Plato wants to bring. But the connecting ideas to philosopher king are what? His theory of soul, his education scheme, communism of wives and property, his views on law, and what else is there? His idea of justice. All these ideas are connecting to his main ideas called philosopher king. So before going into his influences, that is Socrates, etc., in simple terms, I will tell what is this main idea this Plato gave. In a simple terms, I will explain. Plato belonged to the city state of Athens. Plato was highly knowledgeable scholar. He was well read. And his master was Socrates. So as we discussed before, why anybody comes out with a political idea? Situations will compel them. So we need to understand what was that situation in Athens that compelled Plato to think about this philosopher. One situation was this death of Socrates. Socrates died, and that had a deep impact. And why it had a deep impact? For Plato, he had considered Socrates as one of the most intelligent man to ever live on earth because he was logically very strong. And he thought that why he was forced to consume poison. See, Socrates had the choice of escaping, but he didn't escape it. That I'll come later, that why he did not escape, why he consumed poison, because he had, the Socrates, Plato and all, they have huge faith on state. They believe that state is ultimate. Whatever the state does, it is in our interest. Okay. But he thought that why Socrates was killed, one of the reason, there was democracy in Athens. Because they were democracy in Athens, the rulers who were there, they were chosen. Chosen by whom? People. But Plato believed that what? He was influenced his master Socrates. Socrates, I explained, he has a theory of knowledge. People, common man, will be always in the illusion of happiness. He does not know what is true happiness. So he felt that these people who are here, they do not have the capacity to elect the right ruler. They don't have an idea of what is a good ruler, etc. And that is why they have chosen people who do not have the skills to rule. The ruler does not have the skills to rule. What these rulers will be good in? Oratory. So they can easily fool these people. So when these rulers do not have the capacity to rule, etc., obviously he raised the question that what if you are going in a ship, do you need the ship to be driven by an expert driver or a person who does not know how to drive the ship? Obviously an answer is that I need somebody who excels. Question is that then he told if you take state as also a ship, then why do we need not have an expert there? So he felt that since people these rulers did not have true knowledge, they were not able to comprehend what Socrates was telling, and that is why they felt Socrates is a threat to the state, and they condemned him to death. And this made Plato develop hatredness towards democracy, and that is why he considered democracy as the worst form of government. Now he started a search that what is the alternative to democracy. And obviously knowing Plato as of now, obviously the alternative should be somewhat related to knowledge or education. That is when he brought the idea called as philosopher king. I will go to that later, what is philosopher king. But death of Socrates is not the only reason, there were other reasons also in Athens. During his times in Athens, there was increase in corruption. Athens had also lost war to Sparta, the neighboring city state in that regard. And you can say there was a lot of nepotism and favoritism and the moral standards had declined. This was the condition. So that's what I told, it is same way like Batman's Gotham city. Gotham, the city is dying. Now Batman has to do something, and now this Plato decided to become the Batman of Athens. Not truly, he came out with an idea. So what was the idea he proposed? So first he analyzed what is the root cause of all these problems. So when you saw there was corruption, there were no good policies. Why? One is rulers lacked knowledge. That's not any knowledge, true knowledge. Second, family. Why family? When you have your own family, you always see, in general now, when you look at, for Plato, family is an evil thing. The reason is that family has one good element, bond and love. That is one positive thing in a family. But what is a negative thing in a family is that bond and love is only towards your family members. It is not towards extended community members. In ethics, what we tell now, usually now theoretical answer you will tell will do off. But practically if you take, let us say there is a question mark that you are the railway track handler. There are two railway routes. Train is coming in one railway track. You are the person who has the capacity to change the track. Now you observe in binoculars, on one track 100 people are working. That train has lost the brake. So obviously those 100 people will die. One option what you have, that you can change the track. On other track one person is working. So question before you is that save 100 people, kill one. Or you tell that is the destiny of 100 people, we can't do because you are changing the track. So question will, what you will do? Now the easy choice is that, okay, I'll always go for utilitarian approach. Save 100, kill one. But if you closely observe in binocular, that is your own father who is working on the track. Now question is that, will you do it still? No. Answer might be no. You can tell, no sir, I will do, I want to be a savior, etc., etc. Theoretically you can say, but practically a lot of questions will come. At least an idea will come for 2 minutes that should I do it or not. Why? Because he is a family member. Plain simple, let us say you are going on road. Now suddenly you are going on road. Now one person has suddenly, some traffic accident has happened, he is lying on road. So obviously your emotion will be what? If not me, somebody will help. I am going for an exam, now it is important for me. That's one, this is one case study they have given in ethics paper. You are going for an exam, very important means exam. Some person is lying on road, accident has happened, immediately has to be admitted to hospital. People have gathered. So you are going, what will you do? So one thing you can say, anyway people are there, somebody will help them. For me exam is important, I will go. But if that some fellow was lying on the road is your father or your brother or your mother, the question is that, will you do the same thing even then? The answer might be no. Why it might be no? Because you like your family member, you want your family member, you will try to save them. So what Plato believed, that family is an evil thing. And especially for those who are rulers, if they have family, now if you look at Congress in Karnataka ticket distribution, what they have done. Somebody's sister, somebody's brother, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, son-in-law, brother-in-law, everything has been included. Why that attitude is there? Question, if you look into why dynastic politics is there, why they want to promote from their own family power. They don't want to lose power. So what Plato believed, that family is a greater evil. If family is only there, he felt that you will make more money, there is an incentive for you to become corrupt, and for him family is a bigger evil than private property. Because he told the third reason for corruption is private ownership of property. If you can own something privately, you want to own more in that regard. So he wanted to curb all this, and that is why he came out with a solution. That solution was what? philosopher king. Removing democracy, bringing philosopher king. Now philosopher king is not elected, he is chosen. Like you can take in today's sense, like choosing the PM of the country. If we tell like UPSC will do an exam, whoever clears all these 3 stages of the exam will do an interview, etc. Then he goes on to become the prime minister. Same process, similar to, same or. It's not going to be election. People will won't get choose. There will be a rigorous process. They'll choose. Powers of the philosopher king will come later. The making of the philosopher king. How this philosopher king will be chosen. For that, what Plato will tell, he will come addressing each problem. One problem he will tell. First of all, what is the main quality of the ruler? He should be educated. He should have knowledge. And that is when he gave his theory of education or scheme of education. So when Plato gave his scheme of education, he made a comparative analysis of the education system that was there in Athens and education system that was there in Sparta, the neighboring city state. He was very impressed by this education system in Sparta. So how the two education systems differed? Here there was private education, here there was state controlled education system. Here women were denied education, here women were given education. Here there was no military training in their education system. Here there was compulsory military training. In Athens, there at that point of time, there was a group called as sophists, or we say they belong to an idea called as sophism. The sophist was a person, it was named after him. So what this group promoted was that they largely promoted individualism, saying that we have to look after our own wealth. Second one, they told, if you want to be happy in life, you have to acquire what? More power and more privilege. So they encouraged people to what? Capturing power. They encouraged people oratory skills, etc. Both Socrates and Plato were huge opposers of sophists. They believed that this kind of ideas corrupted the Greek society. So what he proposed was that he told we have to inculcate a lot of Spartan education system into Athens. Bring it, like what? So when you look at his education system, what he told? Compulsory state controlled education, no private education. Everybody, the education will be given by the state. So he told two advantages of this state controlled. One, he believed that everybody should get an equal opportunity to prove their worth. So what happens in private education? Let us think currently. Some private schools, they have best teachers, they have best coaching. Right? For example, you can see in this line only, you have insides, you have IS Baba, you have India for IS, and you have some 100 academies are there. So let us think in some academy which is there, they are offering the same course at 50,000 rupees. Same course they will offer at 50,000. Why you have not gone there? Already one, mainly because you will rank you are getting there, all running behind winning horses. Insights will get rank, that is why we will join insights. Quality okay, to an extent okay, comparative you can say. No, we have to be true, it's not like brilliant, yeah, compared to other academies, we are much better. But the problem is that what, now you cannot tell everybody can afford 1 lakh rupees and come here. There will be a lot of people who cannot afford 1 lakh rupees. Right? Same way, government school, you study in some private convent, things are different. Things are different. It will make a huge difference to your confidence, to your thinking abilities, that what you want to become. Why? Because whom you surround with, that is how your thinking process will also develop. So if you go in North Karnataka, because I had gone to North Karnataka do a session, so it was interesting that one of my friend had told, you ask in North Karnataka what they want to become. I asked, what do you want to become? They told PSI. They told PSI, they didn't tell IAS, IPS and all. They told sub-inspector we have to become. That is great for them. Why that is great for them? They are surrounded with people, they see achievers, what? Somebody becoming PSI, etc. Their outlook is not something else. Let us think you are brought up in a private school, a posh family. Now if you wrote in Ambani family, and if you tell the Ambani son, hey, you want to become PSI, you will tell, why should I become PSI? I will own 100 PSIs in my house. Plain simple, na? His thinking is not oriented that way. So when we say education, education is not only about what is taught, education is also what you create as an atmosphere there. That is also equally important. So for Plato, what will happen is that when you have private education, there will be different standards of education, and obviously everybody won't get equal opportunity. You can't be unequal. Similarly, once I had been in the South End library where I was studying, so that librarian once asked, we are doing some school quiz or something, you come as a judge. And there were some 7-8 schools which participated. There was 2 government schools, and other schools was not Mount Carmel, which is that, I don't know, some St. John's, I don't know which school, some 3-4 private schools were there. One thing what I observed, that these private school children were there, they spoke very well. The government school children, okay, they spoke. So when I was about to give marks, what the librarian told, she told, you award more marks to government school. So I told, oh ma'am, how is that possible? But she told something interesting. She told, see, if you give this private school people, they are all coming from posh families. Even if you give them 9 out of 10, or even if you give them 5 out of 10, it does not make a difference to them. It does not make a difference because they have push from family. But what about government school? That was an eye opener, she told, because she personally knew 2-3 students. She told, see, this fellow's father is an auto driver. Now if you give them 8, it will encourage them to do more. But now if you tell, okay, I am going to give them what you can say 5 out of 10, or at least she told give equal number of points. Well, the reason is that, see, in private homes, when you have private coaching, etc., you have that backing. Plain simple. Now, for example, in my case, why I was able to write 5 attempts? In house they backed. If they told, even if 5 gave you right, they told. Why? Because the family business is there. They told, if it goes wrong, you have backing, nothing to worry. But you can't tell the same thing to other people. So what Plato told, there should be no kind of discrimination. He told there should be state controlled education. Everything should be controlled by the state. So his scheme was that, see, that's why I am telling you. Maybe that idea is relevant that time, not now, because he is speaking about city state. In city state, population is very limited. So he created something called as state nursery. So every child that is going to be born in that state will be taken over by the state. Any mind? So let us say the child is born, immediately it will be taken over by the state. And they will have something called like state run nursery. And there will be something called as community mothers. Nobody will know who is their child. Why? Because he said that the moment you come to know this is your child, your love will be particular. But if you mix off the child and you don't know who is your child, then your love will be towards the community. And he told there will be community appointed mothers in that regard who will take care of the children. And these children are taken over by the state and they will be given education by whom? By the state. Every child will be given education by the state. But he is also ruthless in certain aspect. If a child is born disabled, he says that you have to kill that child. Why? Because Plato's concern is not, in one way you can tell it's not welfare of the individuals, for him it is the welfare of the state. For him you have to create the perfect state. So he says that disabled children will be a burden on the state. So that is why the solution is what? Kill them at time of birth. So all other child will be, they will be taken over by whom? By the state. So who will give them education? It is going to be state. Now he creates something called as stages of his education. Okay, there will be different stages. So first stage is 0 to 5. Now this we call as pre. 10, it's done. Okay, then we will continue tomorrow. So tomorrow we will continue with his stages of education.